They raised me to believe that it was more money, more problems. Nah, it's more purpose, more profit. You see, your money only ever gets funny if you're not working through God's promise.
Welcome to Destination Impact Podcast. I'm your host, Desiree Jones, President and CEO of Desiree Jones Co-Agency. This podcast was created to amplify the stories of individuals and organizations who are committed to driving impact, and it serves as a platform where conversations become catalysts for action. Today's guest is Mario Reyes, my friend and client who is a powerful speaker who champions men's mental health. Mario has built an amazing platform at the intersection of mental health, fatherhood, and creative expression. He's a poet, the co-founder of nonprofit Manifest Destiny, co-host of I Ate So Bloom podcast, and creator of the Audacity of Growth Men's Wellness Conference, and so much more. Mario is redefining what healing, leadership, and identity can look like for Black men. I'm excited to share his story. The reason why it was so important for me to interview you in our first season is because I wanted to interview people who are inspiring. I wanted to interview people who've inspired me and actually encouraged me to live in my purpose and move forward in a certain direction. Not just people, like you said, not just celebrities, not just people who, not just people who are popular among everybody, which you are very well known. But I wanted to use this as like the foundation for the reason why we started the podcast. And the reason why we started the podcast is because these are the people who inspire us. These are the people who make the work that we do worthwhile. And so you are one of those people. And I had to bring
Thank
I
you. I
had to bring you
received
in to
that
do that.
begrudgingly. I don't know how to receive flowers, but thank you.
You really are like the prototype for the examples that I'm hoping we can share for the individual and personal stories in the podcast. Like, I want people to understand how they can do the things that they're passionate about and they can marry them with impact. And I feel like it's all of our responsibility in whatever way in which we have influence and we have the ability. It's all of our responsibility to do something that can change someone else's life, right?
Yes,
not just our own.
indeed.
And to me, that's what you've always shown. That's what you still work in IT. I think it's like some tech, right, for the government. So you still doing that, but that's not pulling you away from your purpose, and it's not pulling you away from
It
continuing,
funds it.
essentially. And until that moment happens, I think it's important that people understand, yes, it is a journey, but it's important that people understand, like, at some point, you'll get to this is your everyday life, right?
Yeah.
But until you get there, you shouldn't delay what is burning in your heart to impact other people.
A lot of times people will believe that you started once they got familiar with you,
Yep.
not realizing that there was 40,000 hours in which nobody cared. There were performances that nobody came to. There was books
Yep.
that nobody bought.
And you had to keep showing up.
Resilience. That's
Yeah.
the name of the game.
And so Mario, that's what I want to talk about to start, because I think right now you're doing some amazing things, but I feel like I got to sit at some of the earlier stages of that. So when we're not going to get into the podcast right now, but when you
Now you
named it All Right So Bloom, I was like, that's just a complete reflection of his life, because that's what I've been seeing you do: evolve and bloom and come back and reinvent yourself in many really beautiful ways. And it just really inspires me. But
and that's how I start damn near every conversation we ever have with I so boom.
right.
The real New York.
Yeah, exactly. You just have so many layers. Like, you're a veteran, you work for the government, you're a poet, you're an author, you're a podcaster, you're a father, you're a husband. What am I missing?
We dabble in everything. Anything that will push our purpose. So whether it be real estate and setting up, my son's going to college, right? He was able to get the Presidential Hope Scholarship, so I'm super proud of him, right? Now with that, It's, oh, so I already set aside money for him to go to college. What's a good idea? Let's create a company for him while he's in college and make it a point to acquire one property every year he's in college. So instead of him graduating with debt, he could actually graduate and have income, a net worth, a portfolio, an investment portfolio, and he doesn't have to be pushed into the first thing that comes along to satisfy me, make his needs meet. It's just these are the kind of forward thinking
Right.
that, yeah, cool. You're a creative. You could draw. You could rap. You could write poetry, whatever it is. But
Hmm.
creativity has no bounds. Like I look at my
Hmm.
kids and the way that I father as a work of art in itself. You know what I mean? Even the way
Hmm.
that I love my wife, I love my parents, all of it should be, all relative to that same, should all draw inspiration from the same well of creativity.
But you weren't always there, right? Like you had to become who you are now. What was that journey like?
The journey itself is one of self-confidence. My boy called me the other day. He says, "Yo, you're the most confident person on our block." I was like, interesting. He goes, "What's up?" Like, I just gave you a compliment. I was like, it's not, I didn't receive that, but I
Mm-hmm.
don't look at who I am and how I'm operating as confident. I feel like confidence is a mask that I wore for a very long time, and I was
Mm.
insecure during those times. So confidence for me is about projection. And right now, I'm just being authentically me, and authenticity revolves around acceptance. So the
Mm.
confidence required external projection, authenticity is internal acceptance. And right now, I recognize all the times in which I wore a mask, or I tried to play tough, or I tried to, whatever it was at the time. You know what I mean? So I think the journey looks is that of looking for validation externally,
Mm.
lies in that as long as I love me and I'm happy with me, that's all that matters.
Now that's really complex and interesting, and it's really self aware that you could look at how you were presenting yourself to other people and dissect that in a way that kind of brings you down to actually, I was struggling with some of the same stuff that other people were struggling with. And I just presented a different picture, which not everybody has the ability to do.
I'll give you an example. So the journey, right? I walk into a room, let's say Atlanta, get any room in Atlanta. I'm a 6'5" Puerto Rican dude with either a man bun or braids, you know, fair skin, and I smile bright and I'm pretty loud.
Oh, I thought you was about to say you pretty. I was about to say,
No,
okay,
no, no,
here's the
no, no.
confidence coming through.
But so I'm pretty loud, whatever.
Yeah.
So that makes people take notice. And a lot of times they look at that as, oh wow, this guy's confident. Look how he is controlling the room. But for a very long time, in order to get the gas to do that, it would have been drinking.
Okay.
Because in my mind, I'm still 18 years old, joining the Air Force at 6'5", only weighing 145 pounds. Looking
Mm.
like a parenthesis walking. You know what I'm saying? Like it was like that. Yeah, that it sounds great that, oh God, look at what you've become. But 9 times out of 10, the person that became that used something that was an insecurity as fuel in order to
Mhm.
become that. And I think throughout my journey in mental health, I've gotten to a point in which I've erased or have acknowledged and properly put on the bookshelf these insecurities that were fuel, and I've found fuel elsewhere. Like the poet that only knows how to write when something's sad or bad going on. I'm not that guy no more. Now I could draw from the well of love, from the well of happiness and joy,
Hmm.
realizing that joy and happiness ain't the same thing. You know, happiness is a state of affairs and joy is a state of being. And one only begets the consistency through gratitude. Ergo, lies. Things
Right.
are going to happen. You extract the lesson and you show God that you're grateful for that lesson. Now you just switch the whole paradigm of what it was that you were going through.
But when did you identify that some of your male peers and people that you had encountered were experiencing some of the same challenges that you were experiencing and decided to address it?
Always knew they were going through the same thing.
Okay.
When you're in the locker room, you're in the locker room. When you're in the barbershop, you're in the barbershop. And I've always, we all got superpowers, right? My mother always told me my superpower was like friendship. I choose the right friends, and the people that I choose, they disarm themselves. So, like the thug that did the 10-year bid for whatever and come home and is tough for whatever he cries when he's with me. The quickest way to rob someone of their leverage is to establish your own value system that leaves theirs no merit. So the tough dudes or the people that are very big into sports, etc., they may hang their hat on those accomplishments and what they've done in those realms. I don't care about that. I want to know, are you a good father? I want to know, are you a good human? Are you taking care of your responsibilities? How do you feel? Can you look in the mirror past that initial reflection into the real version of you that was 14 years old and give yourself a hug and show yourself the same kind of adoration that you do based on those accomplishments? I'm more concerned with your character. So, based on the conversations I choose to have, again, they'll see the external. Oh, this dude is, he looked good. He got the suit on, whatever, confident. Let me press him. So they try to press me, and their resume is a paperweight because I'm not interested in those accomplishments. I want to
Right.
know, who are you? How are you? Not just, I would say, how are you more than anything else? Because if I know you're broken, if I'm able to peep that, oh, I want to invite you to a spot where brothers are actively trying to be better.
I feel like shortly after we met, and I would say probably in the like a year or two after we met, you you put out, I don't know if this was your first book. Look, I want to get it because I did definitely put it on the, you put out A Son with No Father, a book with no author. So for a while, you were focused on fatherhood and the
Yes.
relationship between fathers and sons. Was
Yeah.
this your first kind of foray into into the impact space? I want to bring people together. I want to teach people how to solve some issues that I see and that I've experienced in my own life.
Yes and no.
Okay.
That being my first contribution to the literary world, in which I went through the process of actually publishing a book, yes. But I've been writing since I was 15 years old. I didn't start sharing and doing it actively until I moved to Atlanta 10 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
So I would, from 15 years old to 34, I had like little flashes of, I'll do poetry and then fall back. Might do a talent show and fall back, might do a slam and fall back. When I got here, I chose to actively share my work because I was now able to match the lessons that I acquired with the experiences I went through. So my poetry was no longer self-serving. It wasn't based on vanity. The integrity of the art was sincere. So I would say, when it came to addressing and trying to solve some of the issues I see within humanity, it always starts with poetry.
Okay.
And I'm a stage baby. So
Mm-hmm.
that doesn't live on a bookshelf. That lives in the energy that you feel when you're in the same space with people. Like, you could see me online and be like, oh, those words rhymed. That analogy or that metaphor was cool. That
Mhm.
was pleasurable. But in person, and I'm staring you in your face, and you feel the sincerity coming from my heart. I'm ready to bleed on there. It's a different type of exchange.
Right.
You're gonna get the goosebump, and then you're gonna be like, he meant what he said. He wasn't doing this for that. So that's where I'll start.
That's a different energy exchange that you can't
Different.
deny.
It's what it is. It's sincere. I'll just say
Yeah.
that. And then the book, you know, I started sharing my fatherhood journey as a single dad. I feel like I was oversharing it online in the beginning because of, again, insecurities, the fuel. I had to make sure I didn't look like the stereotype.
Oh, so you did it in an effort to like kind of self promote you as a father.
Yeah, like my aunt asked me, and this is a lady that helped raise me. She was
Hmm.
like, "Oh, so what you gonna see your kids once a month? That and you gonna get them on the summer?" I'm like, "No, I'm gonna get like joint custody. I got my kids every 2 days for 2 days, and we rotate weekends. What you talking about?" Like I was offended. So just response. I wrote a poem called "I Am a Man," which to this day is probably my most flagship piece. And
Hmm.
then I just started sharing on Facebook, a dad with two kids, and just going through our life, whatever. And people would be like, I would get DMs like, yo, dude, like, salute to you, when you took the kids to the carnival. I didn't realize that I could have fun at a carnival with my kids. I didn't realize XYZ. You're showing me how to parent in a way. It even helped the communication between my child's mother and myself. All right, cool. There's value there. So if you get one DM like that, cool. If you
Right.
get 10, wow, I made a difference. Get 100, I'm on to something. So I was like, instead of just showing it through there, everybody knows me through what I write. Let me write a book because it
Hmm.
can't just be a book. Not with Mario, you know what I mean? It has to be a resource. So I'm gonna do a workbook to accompany it. That's the one that you got in your hand. And then with the
Oh, and
workbook,
I have the book too.
and
So
then
I
with
must
the
have grabbed the wrong one, but this,
yeah,
yeah, I have the book and the workbook.
and then the workbook can't just be the workbook. We got to do a workshop. So
Hmm.
now, if I'm gonna do workshops, I got to create a nonprofit.
Like before we go into the nonprofit, like when you opened up the idea of a workshop to accompany the book, what were you experiencing in those moments that made you feel like, whoa, it's much bigger than this?
So the very first one we did was during COVID, and we hosted at the gathering spot, and we had about 10 to 12 because some fathers would miss a couple weeks, whatever. But it was an 8-week program, and we had about a dozen or so fathers come through with their children. We had a core 8 though, and it's so crazy, like watching. So the way it was structured, I think that makes that has to give context to it. The way it's structured is I introduced a topic, whether it be redefining manhood, understanding race relations, understanding your sexuality and how to be sexual and how not to be sexualized, bullying, school, what love and the context in which you understand love, all of these different topics, right? We shared the topic. We engaged in group conversation. We led every joint off with a prayer, went into the topic, went into group conversation, then had team building activities, then had a reflection on the conversation and team building and what we learned. That's where I was able to take real control of the conversation and leave them with particular talking points going forward. And then I ended off with a poem, and that was the day. And what I noticed is that One, when they say it takes a village, it doesn't always mean that the village is meant to fill in your absence. What it really means is that the more you lean into your village, the more exposure your child will get because daddy can't be the end all be all. You'll never be able to get every lesson you need from one person. We try our best, no doubt, but you can't. So by leaning into this community of, 24 dudes, 12 fathers, 12 sons, the guys made their own network and the kids made their own network. When I didn't have the particular jewel to drop on the kid on Austin per se, Mr. Mark did. And then watching these fathers, these are captains of industry. These are men in their own right. They're present. They're successful by all the means. They checked off all
Hmm.
the benchmarks, and then they ended up crying in front of their child because they know they've never had a safe space like this when they were a child to talk about things that they went through, how they were guilted into losing their virginity at an age that was too young for them to want to do, what sexual abuse would look like, what the fact that if they cried when they were children, their father would have collapsed their chest in with a fist. You know what I mean? These are things that dudes
Go through that
go through
nobody
when we're
knows
raised.
about.
But when you're speaking about it as a community with your son right there, and you're reflecting and you ask these challenging questions, and another dude could relate to you, and you're like, yo, you know what? Wow, maybe I wasn't raised. Maybe I understand now what the toxicity that people are referencing and where it started, right? And in that community, there were a lot of epiphanies that I had as a father and as a man to that I needed to address within myself. I
So
started,
you ended up growing as a result of you pouring back into other fathers.
listen, like every therapist has a therapist. It's impossible for you to serve all of these people without addressing, and you'll be surprised that as you're doing it, you're uncovering and rediscovering yourself throughout the process.
So let's talk a little bit more. So you started with your approach just focusing on fathers in their
Mhm.
relationship with their sons. And then that eventually evolved into more so focusing on mental health.
Yes, because
And
I'm learning while I'm raising them,
mm,
creating these platforms, and now I'm like, yo, there's some loose strings in my own bag. How am I going to lead if I'm not addressing those? Can't.
but did you figure this out on your own through your own self-awareness, or did something have to happen to make you realize that you were missing something?
Not one magic bullet. I always was looking for the village or community that I found in Undugu, which means brotherhood in Swahili. Jamel Shelton founded this, and it's just a safe space for Black men to come and build. I went from being invited and coming in like this. Let me see what these widows talking about. To at the end of the session being like, ooh, can I say a poem? And now I sit on the board and try my best to be a very vocal advocate. We do partnerships with our nonprofits all the time. That's
Who
one.
started when? When did you
Undugu
become a
started
part of
right
Udugu?
2018.
Oh, so before you even got into advocating for fathers and sons and all of that
Yeah,
work,
yeah,
you
yeah.
had already
So
been introduced through
I,
Udugu.
I got introduced. I got introduced
Right.
in 2019. It started in
Okay.
2018. I got introduced 2019. Pandemic hits. So I got to attend one and I think maybe two in person before we started doing it online, but it was loose. But me and Jamel were talking, and I'm seeing the value in it. And then when the pandemic was over, we started going back in person. And at first, I would pop in here and there. And Chanel, my wife, suggested during this time frame, she's, yo, have you ever thought about going to therapy? And it was the first time I heard that suggestion and didn't take offense to it.
Okay.
prior whenever somebody, because I've had people in the past suggest it, and I was like, yo,
Mm.
who you talking about? I was still on my Bronx, yo, watch your mouth. I'm not crazy. I don't need anybody because I'm this again, the insecurities, the mask, all of the baggage. I noticed I'm leading now. I'm letting go of something. And actually, the workshop was Chanel's idea
Which workshop?
for Kingdom Sun that partners
Oh,
the book.
really?
It was her idea. She was like, hey, and while we were driving back from a weekend getaway, we crafted what it would look like while we were driving. So seeing the success of one thing, seeing the growth of each other and
Hmm.
growing in this relationship, when she suggested it, I didn't meet it with resistance. And in doing that, I started to recognize a lot. And that's when I saw how really valuable Undugu was. So we hit a lull in which attendance and, Jamel, he's a father, he's an entrepreneur, he's dealing with his own stuff. And I just met, I had a wave going on because I was doing performances in colleges now. And
Yeah, because you did a tour, right?
yeah, I did a college tour.
Okay, so tell me a little bit about that. Just briefly about
Oh,
what it
you go
was.
to a showcase called
Mhm.
NACA or APCA. This one was APCA. And I did this, I performed, and you become a preferred vendor at that point if the colleges are interested in you. I had 25 universities reach out. So that was,
That's
and
amazing.
now instead of getting paid 150, $200 for a feature, I'm getting several thousand with, plane and
Right.
meals and
Transportation, everything.
hotel comp provided. So I'm like, oh wow, look at this passion of mine becoming something valuable, something that
Right.
is bringing in real money. So I just had my service hat was on, and it
Hmm.
didn't have to revolve around the kids. And I started discovering parts of myself, and I started going through anger management and understanding how to control myself. Started doing PTSD therapy, realizing that the things that I normalized as that's just par for the course were actually traumatizing. And it doesn't, and it shows up in the wrong way. And I was talking with Jamel one day and I said, no, I was talking to Chanel. And she was like, yo, you doing this Undugu thing a lot. Like, you're heavy in this. I'm like, yeah, yo. I said, yo, sometimes a lion needs to roar without anybody asking what's wrong. And I thought about that. And she said, what you mean? I'm like, I could say like all of this that I feel in here, I could say it out there. I could say it amongst other lions and nobody's going to bat an eye. They may laugh. They may be like, all right, you got it out.
Right.
Now that you heard yourself, what do you got to say? And if I did that in my house, it'll disrupt the peace in my house. My wife would be disrupted. My kids would be scared. They'd be like, why are you talking like that?
And she would be
That's
trying to fix you and get to the bottom of it. And yeah,
and that ain't what this is.
yeah.
Sometimes you just need space. We hit that low, but because I was getting so much out of it, I was on my, let's go. I'm calling dudes up like, yo, pull up. I'm calling this person. I'm like on a different time with,
Why did you feel like that was so important in that moment?
it
You
was
hit a
mine. It was
low
at this
because
point, I'm being selfish. I was being selfish. I'm getting a lot out of this.
so
If
you
he gives
needed
it
it.
up, I can't do it no more.
Yeah.
So I have to go super hard to make sure he recognizes that it's not just Mario. Any man that comes through here is gonna realize it. I started taking a more vocal role. Me and Jamel run like Jordan and Scottie Pippen kind of situation during
Mhm.
each conversation. We do this twice a month. There wasn't a role for me. He just conducted the meetings. But because I saw like his energy was down one time, I just stepped up and started passing around and giving input, blah, blah, blah. And then that just became my role. So now I felt like I had some form of ownership. I know I'm not the founder or whatever, but I'm valuable. I know that much.
And how did the dynamic of something that he started, that you started to contribute heavily to, how did you navigate that space?
As brothers do, like it
Mhm.
wasn't even a conversation. It was understood at first.
Right.
I wasn't gonna ever bring it up. And then at Audacity of Growth, he had the panel and had 100 brothers sitting in front of him on the panel, and he goes, "Yo, I got to thank Mario because he reminded me why I do this work and the passion I have in it." And like it's growing and it's scaling and it's becoming something more than I would have ever thought of because I put my weight behind it and I put my passion and my desires. I don't care who's the captain. I don't care who,
Right.
as long as I'm on the winning team. And right now, winning means health, means happiness. A part of me means joy, means everybody's operating as their best version. That's what winning means now.
Dang, that's so powerful. That's so everything that you said just about your relationship, because oftentimes we have a vision of what we want to do, but we don't realize that it's so much better when we can find the opportunity to partner with someone else to fill in the gaps.
Yeah,
Because it doesn't mean that we aren't enough. It just means that God has put someone else in your life to help you and support you and to elevate, especially when you're doing heart centered work that can ultimately benefit other people.
for
It's
sure. One
like,
of the tenets of Undugu is no titles. So we don't
mhm,
care about you
who you
being
are,
a
where you
lawyer,
come
a
from.
doctor, or whatever, and no egos. And speak from an I perspective. Once you remove, if you are operating with those tenets and you're unwilling to be, I guess, what I am for the space, then you're not operating in those tenets.
But when you have a room full of lions, how do you check the ego? What That's a process. It's not just like something you say, "Hey, here's the rules, no ego." Everybody comes with it. It's almost natural and inherent to who they are.
You have to believe what you're saying. Because we say no ego, speak from an I perspective and no tags. If every time I talk, I was like, as a poet or, as a professional or nah, if I was coming off like that or if Jamel was
Mhm.
coming off like that, that'll give them, everybody's then their main's gonna come up and their claws
Mhm.
are gonna come out. But because we operate and we give brothers the time, these are, stay within the time limit. And once they don't, you'd be surprised how much, for lack of a better word, persuasion you could do with compassion and laughter. And you lead by example. And by doing so, you see how much brothers want a space where they don't have to put on.
Especially in Atlanta. In Atlanta, I feel like this it's a wonderful place to be, but it's
Oh, I
also
love it,
a place
but
where
I
everybody
understand.
brings their things. Like, it's not very often where you can come into a space where people are just who they are. It
Yeah,
doesn't matter what they do for a living. It doesn't matter their, socioeconomic status, nothing like that. It's just, hey, come in as you are. Dang. So last year we got the opportunity to connect on Audacity of Growth. And that was a conference that you guys did that was inspired by the weekly work that you're doing in Undugu.
yeah,
And so that was really, I feel like we only got to scratch the surface in regard to Audacity of Growth, because it was like a quick turnaround and we just got to
yeah,
get
yeah.
the information out. But what I did love is the amazing stories of the individual people that you brought in for the conference. Everybody had a story of impact. Everyone had some sphere of influence where they were connecting to men and they were ministering. They were, I think, like Joshua, I believe, was a fitness trainer. You
Mhm.
had, I mean, across the board, you had
Yeah.
everyone that touched different parts of the community and what men needed. What was your vision behind Audacity of Growth, and what would you like to see that particular conference continue on an annual basis, or what's the vision for it?
Sure. I think a lot of times people want to ask for help, but then they'll try to tell you how to help them. Son, if you knew how that worked, you wouldn't necessarily need the help you're talking about. But you could show them, you could try to explain it till you're blue in the face and they'll never get it. But when they experience it, it's like the poetry I was talking about earlier. When they experience it, it's another situation. So at Audacity of Growth, the way we set it up is we started off with two rooms to service two different people. We had one room to service the men in which we did a mini undugu session. And then we had another room to service the women and had instructors provide them with guidance on how to support a man in his healing journey. So
Why did you feel like that was important to incorporate the women? I mean, it's obvious in
because
many,
black women are
but
always going to be your biggest advocate. And without the black woman, the black men are going to be lost. It's just what it is. We could break that down,
right,
but from top level overview, again, I only went into therapy because Chanel suggested it. And because I didn't have any defense with her, I didn't have defense approaching it.
right,
So women are always going to advocate to make us better versions of ourselves because then we're better versions for them. If I feel like I'm being overwhelmed or she's being overstimulated, and we know that our capacities are either really low or really high, we'll address it. Yo, babe, I'm running at 20% today, yo. All right, baby, don't worry. I had a good day. I got you 80.
just being able to articulate that you don't have it all that day is something, is growth in itself.
So,
Because
and sometimes that's
not
all it
everyone,
takes.
yeah, not everyone could come to the table with this is where I'm at right now.
Right.
Sometimes it's reactive, sometimes it's, immediate conflict instead of just saying, hey, I don't have it. Now, I still want to, I mean, we're almost at time. I still wanted to take some time to talk about ISO Bloom because I think that's just a whole nother thing that is, I can tell you're super passionate about, but I'm super impressed by it as well. But just thinking about Audacity of Growth, thinking about Undugu and how you guys have grown just by committing and being present week after week and not, whether it's 5 people in the room or 30 people in the room, you guys are showing up. And then you have Audacity of Growth. What's next?
If Undugu's the root, Audacia growth was the tree,
Mhm.
I so bloom is a branch.
Gotcha. It's
All
all interconnected.
all interconnected. So we're one of the few podcasts that can say, yes, you enjoyed our conversation here. Come in person. Put your big boy pants on. Step into the room with other lions and roar. Be heard. Get it off your chest. You ain't gotta argue in the comments. You ain't gotta talk to the screen while it's playing. We're here in real life. Come pull up on us. And that's a beautiful and dudes do. Like we just did the launch. We got another 20 dudes come out of nowhere. Boy, yo, we came to the launch. That was crazy. Now they pulling up there and they starting to see, oh, this is real work. And the best part is Ndugu's not the real work. It's your introduction to start doing the real work. So whereas I said earlier, Undugu's the root, no, the work I did on myself and that Jamel did on himself and that Dr. Kurt did on himself and that Chris did on himself, those are the roots.
Or the seeds.
And then Undugu's the bark, the tree, the centerpiece. And now we're branching out and now we're blooming these flowers or fruit or whatever you want to call it. It's all a byproduct of doing real work and being of service first. So the podcast really just feels natural.
First of all, the rollout for the podcast,
Thank you.
bravo.
I learned from the
Bravo.
I learned from the best.
Bravo. I was so proud of my friend. I was like, okay, now this is like how I like to see it. I think the imagery is beautiful. I think the all of the promotional content was really spot on and very just authentic. And then you get these amazing Black men from different backgrounds in the same room. I'm sure you handpicked them intentionally. And
Yes.
I think it's just the perfect mix of personalities and expertise. So it's like you start off, you got this real like hip hop vibe and influence, and then you go into a space that's, a space that's promoting healing and just open dialogue about all different types of things. But I will tell you what you probably don't necessarily think. This is a really highbrow situation. Like when I was listening to it, I'm like, they are talking about deeply complex issues and like breaking it down in a way that I'm like, okay, this is not just like bros
Yeah,
talking about mental health. Like these, all of you feel like experts.
yeah.
And that to me was really dope.
First, I want to thank you because I made my publicist proud in the rollout. Like,
I was definitely proud.
I tell you, I study and I learn. When you step in and you have purpose, you know there's a need, I'm going to service that need. I could think of a lot of ways in which I could tie it into like thematics,
Mhm.
you know. So when we did the launch, I was excited. Like I was big on the launch because I'm a stage baby.
Right.
It's weird for me to be sitting with a camera on and or go into a booth and try to convert the energy I have in front of a crowd into a studio booth. It's weird.
That's what I wanted to ask you. So if I haven't ever been in the room of Undugu, but I've heard a lot about it through you. Is that what is the podcast? Of course, it's not a group therapy session. You know what I'm saying? Because
It
it's
is
you guys.
though. It is, but
Well,
it
I'm
ain't.
saying it's you guys, but you don't have an audience. So
So we have this is how it is. Just think
okay.
about it like a room with chairs in a big circle. Sometimes there has to be multiple circles depending on how many brothers come through.
Right.
Big room, you know, 70, 80, 90 dudes. Jamel and I are in the center. We pose a question. We give the rules. We
Hmm.
pose the question, and I got two sticks, one red, one black. Black is for who's talking, red for who's up next. And then we had the same way as in with Ites or Bloom, we have segments, right? Conversation. Then we have Brother with Feelings as a play on is
Yeah.
BWF instead of BMF. You know, awesome Atlanta, give a nod to the culture. Then we end off with Dr. Kurt, what you trying to kick knowledge? Another nod to hip hop. So if you're paying attention while you watch an episode, you see all of these, you hear all these dog whistles that are meant for you to see, to say that we see you and we are you
And it's also flipping something that could have been perceived as negative to positive.
all day.
I know you guys ultimately have a vision for the work that you're doing, from Undugu to Audacity of Growth to IXO Bloom. But outside of that, like if you could present the best case scenario of what type of impact you'd like to create by all of these things in this tree that is growing, right? What does that impact look like to you outside of any mental limitations that you can think of? If you could have everything that you wanted to get to that end result, what would the end result what would the success metric be?
My man told me the other day, we was talking, and I wrote a poem called Purpose v Profit. And it starts off with, they raised me to believe that it was more money, more problems. Nah, it's more purpose, more profit. You see, your money only ever gets funny if you're not working through God's promise.
I mean,
That means
listen, if you want to give us a word, we can listen to a word.
if you're not working through God's promise, this is God's honest. Your job should be honored. To have access to your talent and knowledge, then why do they always act like they're your sponsor? In your spirit, you could feel the conflict between your wallet and your contract, and neither align with your conscience. People always want to know, how do you go from living in projects to bidding on prospects? You see, it's a given since you only gain your profit once you accept that you're the prophet. Lady Luck cannot blow a kiss to a lip that is dishonest. How can you listen to your calling while stuck in a circle of gossip? How many false idols gotta fall from grace because they're just too obnoxious? I'm just out here trying to drop a jewel on anybody. So I ask you, do you copy? More money, more problems. Nah, it's more purpose, more profit. They're going to try to convince you to sign on that dot and forfeit all of your options. But how about this? You can own all of your time. Once your gifts, your money, and all align. That's what I call the masculine divine. Once you comprehend, then you can apply. If you rent space in your spirit, then your soul is on sale for any devil to buy. It's your ego responsible for your shame. Once you let it go and give God praise, your purpose reveals, your profit is filled because your debt to God is finally paid. You see, once you get in tune, profit ensues. Your frequency will improve because you learn to channel the God within you. Your purpose has to have some principles. It's really that simple. Once you submit, the download begins. That's the secret sauce. There ain't no beef when you are at peace within. More money, more problems. Nah, it's more purpose, more profit. I followed my heart. Now, everywhere I go, I get to walk my own red carpet because I'm no longer chasing dollars. You see, once you're rich in spirit, I promise your fortune will follow. You know what I mean? That's
No, first of all, that was amazing. I feel
thank
so
you.
blessed to have heard that. It even that's what I want people to feel. Everything that you said, people. We need to stop selling out and realize that what is in our hearts and what our desires are and the change that we want to see. God is seeking for us
Mhm.
to make that part of our purpose,
What you're
right?
seeking is seeking you. If you got hate in your heart, you will find hate when you step outside your door.
I feel like you just who you are, like you are who you are, right? And you come in the door and everybody probably has their own preconceived notions about you. But I feel like what I see is you moving closer and closer to your purpose and doing more and keep showing up. And like you said, showing up when it was only two people in the room, to filling a room when you launch your podcast and all of the heart that you put into everything. I just pray that it reaches like people beyond your imagination.
From your lips to God's ears. You asked me earlier, in my wildest imagination, what's going to happen? I'll give it to you right now. The Audacity Growth Conference is going to grow from a 200 person conference at a library to a 20,000 person weekend at a convention center. So Bloom is going to go from being a respectable organic 1,000 viewers and supporters to 100 million. Undugu is going to become a chaptered organization in which we spend most of our time doing
Mhm.
train the trainers in different locations throughout the US and globally to make sure they know how to conduct these meetings, and the meetings themselves are only going to be the byproduct of the nation building. So then Undugu has resources in all the hoods, a house, a community house that we could teach the kids how to close the digital divide in AI and robotic design. We could teach them about financial planning and understanding taxes and investing in real estate. We could teach, you got to change the culture from the inside, and we not scared. We're actually enthused to go into these communities. I want Undugu Speaks, the premier location for brothers looking to articulate themselves. So right now you have Toastmasters.
Mhm.
You get a certificate as a brother from Undugu Speaks. Anybody looking to hire a keynote understands that what that certificate entails, the kind of grueling self-discovery you got to go through and write, and know that's going to command $10,000 as a speaker's fee for everybody that comes through that program. I So Bloom is going to be on the New York Times bestseller. And when I'm sitting there next to Oprah one day, I'm gonna be like, yo, Desiree got to come out here too, yo.
That's love. That's love.
That's what I see.
I love it. I love it. I feel so filled up. Just first of all, I knew our conversation was going to be crazy. I said we
For
gonna
sure.
blow this hour out
Like,
the water.
guaranteed.
Thank you for giving me your time. But before we go, you have said the vision, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you for sharing it because sometimes, it's something you might want to hold close to you. Thank you for sharing the vision. For anyone that's listening, how can they support the work that you're doing in any way?
I would say first, if you're looking for a place to call a home, go to at Undugu Brotherhood, UNDUGU Brotherhood. That's on Facebook, Instagram.
Mm.
On Instagram and YouTube, you can follow at IGHTSOBLOOM, IGHTSOBLOOM. You can watch full episodes and clips on YouTube, and you can catch the clips and more candid conversations on Instagram. If you want to lock in with me and any of the work that I'm doing, it's at I am Mario A. Reyes on my website, marioareyes.com. And there it's a sancocho, it's a jambalaya. That's the stew. That's where you're going to get me fawning on my wife. You're going to get poetry about the hood. You're going to you know, get to track my kids' growth. That's like my little scrapbook. If you want to support the work we do in the community with Manifest Destiny, that's arts, youth, nonprofit that me and my wife started to show children how to commoditize their artwork and use art as therapy. You could donate at Manifest Destiny NPO, Manifest Destiny NPO.com, and on Instagram at Manifest Destiny INC.
All right. All right. Thank you, Mario, for joining us. Thank you for joining Destination Impact. I think this conversation, anyone that listens to it will be inspired and they'll understand and hopefully they'll go forth and create something magical like you've done. So thank you, thank you, thank you so much.
Thank you, Destination Impact. Thank you, Desiree. It makes it easy when it's the home team.